there was me. That is Alex and my 3 droogs. That is Pete, Georgie, and Dim. Dim being really dim. We sat in this Corova milk bar trying to make up our razoo docs what to do with the evening. A flip, dark, chill winter bastard. Go dry. The Corova milk bar sold Milk Plus, Velocet or Syntomesk or Drencrum, which is what we were drinking. This would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of the old ultra-violence. Our pockets were full of dang, so there was no need, from the point of view of crafting any more pretty Polly, to tall-chock some old Beck in an alley and bid him swim in his blood while we counted the takings and divided by 4. Not to do the ultra-violence on some shivering, starry, grey-haired petitza in a shop, or go smacking off with the till's gutty ones. But as they say, money isn't everything. What's it going to be then, eh? I first met Stanley Kubrick in 1969. I got a telephone call from my agent saying, Mr. Stanley Kubrick would like to see you, very secretive, wouldn't tell me why. Would I please go to his home outside of London? And, which I did. I had a very nice talk with him for an hour about superficial things. So then eventually I said, look, Stanley, what is it you want from me? And he said, well, have you ever heard of a book called A Clockwork Orange? And I said, no, I haven't actually. He said, well, here's a copy of it, read it, and call me. So, of course, I was rather excited because this was the great director, Stanley Kubrick. You know. So I read the book. The first reading, I couldn't understand a word of it. I had to keep going to the end, looking at this funny language, this invention of Anthony Burgess. Then I read it again, and it became a little bit easier. Then the third time I read it, my mouth dropped open in wonder, and I said, this book is a masterpiece. But it took me 3 readings. Then I called Stanley Kubrick, and I said, Stanley, it's a brilliant book. What have you got in mind? And he said, well, you know, Mal, gee, I'm thinking of making it into a movie. And I said, oh, really? And do you want me to play Alex? Long pause. He sort of mumbled the word, yes. And that's how I began on my long journey with Alex in A Clockwork Orange, which has now come around a full circle. It's now 28 years ago. It's amazing, really. It's got legs, as they say in Hollywood. Oh, one funnier thing about Stanley, he called me to his house one day during the pre-production. The pre-production on the film was 7 months. I got to meet with him every day for 7 months. And he called me and said, come to the house immediately. So I got to his house. It was 45 minutes outside of London. Anyway, I got there, and he called me into a small office, and he turned on the television on the tape, VCR tape. And these girls came in naked, except for a pair of pants, and were saying things like, now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious by the Duke of York. And that's where the pictures came in like this, on the zoom lens. So a pair of breasts. So he pushed pause and took a shot on a still camera of these breasts. There were 30 girls doing this. Now is the winter of our discontent. Okay. So I said, Stanley, he said, Malcolm, this is going to be great because you're going to choose the handmaidens in the film, and you're going to be able to choose the breasts you want. Well, far be it from me to argue with the director, right? So the next day, I get another call, very secret. Come out quickly. I've got the pictures back. So we go out. He's got 30 sets of breasts on the table. He said, well, gee, Malcolm, you choose first. I said, well, thank you so much. I said, well, these are rather nice, gorgeous. I think this one. He said, all right, okay, we'll take that one, and I'm going to pick this one. You like the rather upturned one. And he said, yes, and we want one more, and I'll pick that, and this is the one. I went, terrific. And who do they belong to? He took the photograph, he turned it over, and he said, "Oh, gee, I don't know." It goes better in English, believe me. The Durango 95 purred away real harsh. A nice, warm, vibrating feelings all through your gutty woods. And soon it was trees and dark, my brothers, with real country dark. We fillied around for a while with other travellers of the night, playing hogs of the road. Then we headed west. What we were after now was the old surprise visit. That was a real kick and good for laughs and lashings of the old ultraviolence. It was home we were wanting, and it was home we came to. "What is this? Who are you? How dare you enter my house without permission?" And all this time, his goddess was trembling in his rookus too. So I said, "Never fear. If fear thou hast in thy heart, O brother, pray, banish it forthwith." Then Georgie and Pete went out to the kitchen, while old Dim waited for orders, standing next to me with his rot wide open. "What is this then?" I said, picking up the pile-like of typing from off the table. And the horned-rimmed Mooj said, dithering, "That's just what I want to know. What is this? What do you want? Get out of once or I'll throw you out." So poor old Dim, masked like P.B. Shelley, had a good loud smack at that, roaring like some animal. "It's a book," I said. "It's a book, what you are writing." I made the old goddess very coarse. I've always had the strongest admiration for them that can write books. And then I looked at its top sheet, and there was a name. A Clockwork Orange. And I said, "Well, that's a fair gloopy title. Who ever heard of a Clockwork Orange?" Then I read a lengthy bit out loud in a sort of very high-tag, preachy gollus. Dim made the old lip music at that, and I had to smack myself. Then I started to tear up the sheets and scatter the bits over the floor. "There's a mackerel of a cornflake for you." And this writer Mooj went sort of bazoomy and made for me with his zoobies clenched and he's showing yellow and his nails ready for me like claws. So that was old Dim's cue. And he went grinning and going, and for this vexed dithering rot. Crack, crack, crack. First the left fisty, then the right. So that our dear old Drew, the red vino on tap, and the same in all places, like it's put out by the same big firm, started to pour, and spot the nice clean carpet. And the bits of his book that I was still ripping away at, razarez. Then Georgie and Pete came in from the kitchen, both munching away. They went haw, 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 videoing old Dim dancing around and fisting the Reiterbeck, so that the Reiterbeck started to platch like his life's work was ruined, going boo-hoo-hoo, with a very square bloody rot. But it was haw, haw, haw in a muffled eater's way, and you could see bits of what they were eating. I didn't like that, it being dirty and slobbery. So I said, "Hey, drop that mounch." I gave no permission. "Grab hold of this back here so we can video all and not get away." So they put down this fatty picture on the table among all the flying paper, and they clobbered over on the writer's back, whose horned rims uchkis were cracked but still hanging on, with old Dim still dancing around and making ornaments shake on the mantelpiece, while he filled with the author of A Clockwork Orange, making his litso all purple, and dribbling away like some very special sort of juicy fruit. "All right, Dim," I said, "now for the other vesh. Bog help us all." So he did the strong arm on the Divochka, who was still creaching away in a very horror show, 4 in a bar, locking her rookas from the back, while I ripped away at this and that and the other, and the others going haw, haw, haw. Still, and real good horror show groovies they were, and then exhibited their pink glasses. While I untrussed and got ready for the plunge, plunging I could slooshy cries of agony, and this writer bleeding back that Georgie and Pete held on to, Nearly got loose, howling, presuming with his filthiest of slovos that I already knew, and others that he was making up. Then after me, it was right that old Dim should have his turn, which he did in a beastly, snorty, howly sort of way, with his PB Shelley Marsky taking no notice while he held on to her. Then there was a changeover, Dim, me grabbing the slobbering Reiterbeck, who was past struggling really, only just coming out of his slack sort of slovos, like he was in the land of an Oak Bar Plus, and Pete and Georgie had theirs. Then there was like quiet, and we were full of like hate. So smashed, what was left to be smashed. Typewriter, lamp, chairs, and Dim. Well, it was typical of old Dim. He watered out the fire. He was going to take a dong on the carpet, but, you know, there's plenty of paper about. But I said, no, out, 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 I howled. The Reiterbeck and the Sheena were not really there, bloody and torn, and making noises. But, you know, they live. So, we got into the waiting auto, and I left it to Georgie to take the wheel. Me feeling that I was a lanky bit shagged, and we went back to town, running over odd squealing things on the way. Woo! It's hot in here, sorry.
Yes.
Of course, that's a reading from the book, and we didn't shoot this particular sequence like it is in the book. We came up with something else. I remember very distinctly because in the script it was that the gang come in, Alex and his droogs, and they smash up the place and they throw bottles of liquor through the window, and it was kind of a boringly written scene, if I may say. And Stanley didn't like the rehearsals very much, and we all sat around for a week while he changed the furniture. Of course, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman can sympathize with that. So I think they've been sitting around for the best part of a year. Anyway, he decided to change the furniture a couple of times, and eventually, I think after about 7 days, he asked me whether I could dance. And immediately went into, I'm singing in the rain. And suddenly, Stanley's eyes lit up. He grabbed hold of me, got me into his car, and we drove back to his house, and he called up and bought the rights from the publishing company in New York. And we went back and worked it out, and we did this whole Singing in the Rain, which has become this infamous scene. Oh, by the way, the very beautiful actress Adrienne Corrie, who plays the rapee, I know that she had the most gorgeous body, and I think she was in fact 40 years old then, and she was very proud of the fact. And the first thing she said to me was, you know, Malcolm, I am really a redhead. I said, oh, never thought anything else, you know. She disrobed, and I said, oh yes, I see what you mean. Where I lived with my dad and mum in municipal flat block 18A, Linear North, it had been a wonderful evening, and what I needed now to give it the perfect ending was a bit of the old Ludwig band. Then, brothers, it came. Oh, bliss, bliss, and heaven. I lay, all nagoy to the ceiling, my Gulliver on my roopers, on the pillow, glasses closed, rot open in bliss, slooshing the lovely sounds. Oh, it was gorgeousness and gorgeosity made flesh. The trombones crunched red gold under my bed, and behind my Gulliver, the trumpets three-wide silver-flamed. And there by the door, the timps rolling through my gutty wats, and out again crunched like candy thunder. Oh, it was wonder of wonders. And then a bird of like rarest spun heaven metal, or like silvery wine flowing in a spaceship, gravity, all nonsense now, came the violin solo above all other things. And those strings were like a cage of silk around my head. Then flute and oboe bored, like worms of like platinum with the thick, thick toffee gold and silver. I was in such bliss, my brothers. P&M in their bedroom next door had learnt now not to knock on the wall with complaints of what they called noise. I had taught them well. Now they would take sleep pills. As I sluiced my glasses tight shut to shut out the bliss that was better than any Synthenes, bog, or god, I knew such lovely pictures. There were Vex and Petitzas, both young and starry, lying on the ground screaming for mercy. And I was smecking all over my rot and grinding my boot in their litzos. And there were Devotchkas, ripped and creaking against walls, and I plunging like a schlager into them. And indeed, when the music, which was one movement only, rose to the top of its big highest tower, then lying there on my bed with glasses tight shut and rukas behind my gulliver, I broke and spatted and cried, "Ah!" with the blister. And so the lovely music glided to its glowing close. I don't know whether, I would hope that some of you here have probably seen the film, Clockwork. But if you haven't, really, you're wasting your time listening to me. But when Stanley first played Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, he wanted from me to come up with some kind of look. And I said, you know, I don't know, Stanley, what kind of look? I was terrified as an actor of what we call going over the top, chewing the scenery, you know. I wanted to make it very real. Of course, I was a young actor then. Now I don't mind chewing the scenery at all. Anyway, so he put on the music really loud, and I sat on the bed, and sort of there came this look. The eyes turned up, the mouth. Like that. Well, when I did this, I remember Stanley howling with laughter and shoving his handkerchief in his mouth to stop laughing. And he used to do that on occasion. I think he's still on the soundtrack of the movie doing that. But anyway, that's how we found the look for that. The actual person who gave me the key to the role of Alex in A Clockwork Orange wasn't Stanley Kubrick, as it happened. It was actually my good friend and great director, Lindsay Anderson. And I asked Lindsay if he wouldn't mind reading the book and telling me his thoughts. And he read the book. There was a little bit of competition between him and Stanley, you know, two great directors and all that. And he said to me, I don't think he can possibly make a film out of this. I said, well, he's going to. We're shooting in a couple of months. He went, oh, well, really? Do you like it? I said, well, yes, I think it's rather good. Do you? Yes. Don't you? No, I can't see a film in this. I'd never make a film in this. And I said, well, look, Lindsay, I've got to do this part, and I really haven't got a clue how to do it. He said, oh, well, I'll tell you how you should do it. There's a shot of you in If coming into the gymnasium to be beaten by the prefects. And there's a close-up. When you open the door, you have this look on your face. That's how you play Alex in A Clockwork Orange. And I went, thank you, Lindsay. Brilliant. And actually, that's how I played it. He saved me my bacon. I'm sorry, it's so hot in here. I hope you can sort of understand the gist of what we're saying. I think even for an English audience, this language is very difficult, but bear with me. I'll try and give you a few jokes along the way. Well, here, after some altercation with the gang, Alex remains in charge, and then at Georgie's suggestion, the four go to London's Old Town, where they meet up with the cat lady, brilliantly played by Miriam Carley. Alex gets into the house, he breaks into a window, and comes down to where she is. Hi there. At last we meet. Our brief gobbery through the letter hole was not, shall we say, satisfactory? Yes? Let us admit not. Oh, verily not, you stinking starry old shark. And I blinked in the light of this room, and the old petits in it. It was full of cots and koshkas, all crawling to and fro all over the carpet, with bits of fur floating in the lower air, and these fat, scrutinas were all different shapes and colours. Black, white, tabby, ginger, tortoiseshell, and of all ages too. So that there were pussies full grown, and that there were real dribbling starry ones and very, very bad tempered. Their mistress, this old Petitza, looked at me fierce like a man and said, "How did you get in? Keep your distance, you villainous young toad, or I shall be forced to strike you." I had a real horror-show smack at that. Vidding that she had in her veiny ruka a crappy wood walking stick, which she raised at me threatening. So I hit it a bit nearer to her, taking my time, and on the way I saw, like, on the sideboard, a lovely little vesh, the loveliest malenki vesh any malchik, fond of music like myself, could ever hope to biddy with his own 2 glasses, for it was like the Gulliver and Plechos of Ludwig van himself, what they call a bust. A stone vesh with stone long hair and blind glasses and a big flowery cravat. I was off for that right away, saying, "Well, how lovely, and all for me." But Izzy towards it in with my glasses like full on it and my greedy ruka held out, I did not see the milk saucers on the floor, and into one I went and sort of lost my balance. "Whoops," I said, trying to steady. But this old Petitza had come up behind me, very sly and with a great scurriness for her rage, and then she went crack, crack on my Gulliver with her bit of a stick. So I found myself on my rukas and knees trying to get up, saying, "Naughty, naughty, naughty." And then she was going crack, crack again, saying, "Wretched little slimy bedbug, breaking into real people's houses." I didn't like this crack, crack, urga. So I grasped hold of one end of her stick as it came down again, and then she lost her balance and was trying to steady herself against the table. But then the tablecloth came off, with a milk jug and a milk bottle going all drunk, then scattering white sploosh in all directions. And then she was down on the floor, grunting, going, "Blast you, boy, you shall suffer." Now all the cats were getting spoogy and running and jumping in like cat panic. And some were like blaming each other, hitting out cat cold shots with one old lapper and guitar and grrr. I got up on my nougas, and there was this nasty vindictive Starry Forella with her wattles of shape and grunting as she like tried to lever herself up from the floor. So I gave her a malenki fair kick in the litso. She didn't like that. And she went off crying, "Whoa!" So I stepped back from the kick. And I must have like trod on the tail of one of those drastic, creaking pusspots, because I slooshied and groonky, "Yeah!" and found like fur and teeth and claws like a fastened onto themselves around my leg. And there I was, cursing away and trying to shake it off and trying to climb over this old Petitza on the floor to reach the lovely Ludwig van in the flowing in live stone. And then I was, into another saucer brimful of creamy Morocco, and near went flying again, while the Vesh, really a very humorous one if you could imagine, slew chatting to some other deck and not your humble narrator. And then the starry Petitza on the floor reached over all the drastic yowling pusscats and grabbed at my nogger, still going "Wah!" at me. And my balance being a bit gone, I went really crash this time onto the splooshing Moloko and striking Koshkas, and the old Forella started to fist me on the litso, creaking, "Thrash him! Beat him! Pull out his fingernails, the poisonous young beetle!" And a couple of Koshkas got onto me and started screeching like Bazoomi. So then I got a real Bazoomi myself, brothers. I hit out at them, but this babushka said, "Toad, don't touch my kitties!" and like screaming my litso. So then I upped with the statue and cracked her a fine fair tolchok on the Gulliver, and then shut her up real horror-show and lovely. Now, as I got up from the floor among all the cracking crots and koshkas, what should I slooshy but the shoon of the old police auto siren? And in the distance, I belted for the front door and had a rabbiting time undoing all the locks and chains and bolts and other protective veshes. And then I got it open, and who should be on the doorstep but old Dim? Me just being able to biddy the other two of my so-called droogs, belting off. "Away," I creaked to Dim. "The Rozzers are coming," Dim said. "Will you stay to meet them? And then I biddied that he had his chain out, and then he upped with it, and it snaked and he changed me gentle and artistic-like on the glasses, me just closing them up in time. Then I was howling around trying to get him with this howling great pain, and Dim said, "I don't like you should do what you've done, old Rudy. Not right it wasn't to get out onto me like that the way you done, Brady." And then I could swooshy his bolshy, lumpy boots beetling off. And it was only about 7 seconds after that I slooshied the Millicent van draw up with a filthy, great, drooping siren howl like some bazoony animal snuffing it. I was howling too and like yawing about, and I banged my Gulliver smack on the hall wall, my glasses being tight shut, and the juice a stream from them, very agonizing. So, there I was, like groping in the hallway as the Millicents arrived. I couldn't pity them, of course, but soon I could feel the bastards that they got rough and did the old twist arm act, carrying me out. I could also slooshy one Millicent Goss, saying from like the room I'd come out of, with all the cots and koshkas in it. She's been nastily knocked, but she's breathing. And there was the old mewing all the time. "A real pleasure this is," I heard one Millicent say. I was told-chopped, very rough and scoring into the auto. "Little Alex, all to our own selves." Well, of course, sorry, what did you say? Miriam Carlin played the cat lady, and brilliantly. She was wonderful. And Stanley did his great handheld thing, and all the thing with the giant phallus. Stanley actually, Kubrick, is operating the camera himself. I think there were just 3 of us in the room. And it's a very brilliant sequence, especially with the modern art on the walls and his intercutting with it and stuff like that. I remember then that we had a scene in the police station, which I'm going to read to you next, but I'll tell you about it, where the Aubrey Morris, who played, memorably played the probation officer, was sort of gay, a little gay, and he sort of said, "Little Alex," and that kind of voice, you know. And, anyway, he had to spit at me. They say, you know, "Go on, sir, bash him, give him a bash and a chop, sir, if you want." And he just comes up and spits at me. And so he spat 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Of course, the spit wasn't good enough for Stanley. He said, "It's too much like cotton. I want a real good spit." One of those. So, bless this actor. He said, "I'm sorry, Stanley, but I can't do that. I can't spit like that." So I thought, oh, good. I'm going to get away with it. So then another actor said, "Oh, I can spit like that, Stanley." I've never really liked this actor. He's now a very famous playwright. His name is Stephen Burkoff. He's a right bolshy bastard, I think. But anyway, he came up. Ooh, it went everywhere. Here, 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 here. Not quite right, Stanley, was it? No, it wasn't quite the right place for Stanley. So, 20 takes of this. So then I said, "Excuse me, Stanley." "Where exactly would you like him to spit?" He said, "I want it to hit the nose and dribble off." I said, "This is worse than working for David Lean." Anyway, the next one. At the light chief desk, the top Millicent was sitting, looking very serious and fixing a like very cold glassy on my sleepy vitso. I said, "Well, well, 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 what makes, Bratty? What gives this fine, bright middle of the night?" He said, I'll give you just 10 seconds to wipe that stupid grin off your face. Then I want you to listen. Well, what? I said, smacking. Are you not satisfied with beating me near to death and having me spat upon and making me confess to crimes for hours on end and then shoving me among the zoomies and bonny perverts in that grazly cell? Have you some new torture for me, you bratchny? It'll be your own torture, he said, serious. I hope to God it tortures you to death. And then, before he told me, I knew what he meant. The old Petitza, who had all the cots and koshkas, had passed on to a better world. I'd cracked her a bit too hard, you see. Well, that was everything. I thought of all those cots and koshkas mewing for the old Moloko and getting none. Not any more from their starry forever of a mistress. That was everything. I'd done the lot now, and me still only 15. When we finished the film, of course, I didn't meet Anthony Burgess until, way after we'd finished the film and we'd seen it, and we saw it at a screening. I was so nervous I started smoking cigarettes again, but that's another story. Anyway, I sat there with Burgess, and he liked the film. He loved the film at first. It's only subsequently he didn't like it. But we went to New York together to sell the film, and go around all the talk shows and all that. And he was, of course, the most brilliant raconteur. And I really said nothing. I just sat there listening to him and enjoying his presence immensely. I do remember one story that about being with him. He was, we were both at the New York's Film Critics to pick up the award for Best Film and Best Director. And so he would pick up Stanley Kubrick's award. And the first thing he said was, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, I've been sent here by God, Stanley Kubrick, to pick up this award. And I'm sure he thanks you very much. Of course, I don't think he ever got to meet Stanley. I think they just talked on the telephone. But that seems to be the way it is with Stanley these days. But anyway, he then said, he told a wonderful story about his own father being alive and joined to the film industry. His father used to accompany silent films on the piano. And apparently, he looked up at the screen and saw this very festive occasion at a dinner table and started to play very festive music and got so carried away, by the time he looked up again, he realized it was the Last Supper. Of course they fired him. One small anecdote about Anthony Burgess, who of course is the unsung hero of Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. Really, it's Anthony Burgess's Clockwork Orange, directed by Stanley Kubrick, but that's another matter. He was told, he went to a doctor for an examination, for a physical. The doctor told him he had 9 months to live. And so he thought, oh my God, I better write some novels to leave for my family, because they'll be destitute. He wrote 5 full-length novels in the 9 months under different names, so that they wouldn't flood the market with Anthony Burgess. And he himself was working as a book critic for the Yorkshire Post in England, a provincial newspaper, a very good one. And of course, he'd keep getting these novels written by so-and-so that actually he'd written. And so he would review them very well. He gave himself the best reviews that he's ever got in his career. Of course, when the editor of the Yorkshire Post found out, they fired him. He couldn't take a joke. Anthony Burgess outlived that doctor by at least 35 years. Well, after serving 2 years of a 14-year sentence, Alex volunteers to undergo the Ludovico technique, which will allow him to be set free immediately. So he's going to have this treatment. And before this begins, he's given an injection which leaves him strangely weak. Where I was wheeled to, brothers, was like no cine I'd ever visited before. True enough, one wall was all covered with like silver screen, and direct opposite was a wall with square holes in it for the projector to project through. And there were stereo speakers stuck all over the mezzo. But against the right-hand one of the other walls was a bank of like all little meters, and in the middle of the floor, facing the screen, was like a dentist's chair with all lengths of wire running from it. And I had like to crawl from the wheelchair to this, being given some help by another like male nurse Beck in a white coat. Right, said the wheelchair wheeling Beck. Now I'll leave you. The show will commence as soon as Dr. Brodsky arrives. I hope you enjoy it. Well, to be truthful, brothers, I did not really feel that I wanted to biddy any film show this after lunch. I was just not in the mood, but I would have liked much better to have had a nice quiet spatchka on the bed, nice and quiet, and on my odinoki. I felt very limp. What happened now was that one white-haired coatbeck strapped my Gulliver to like a headrest, singing to himself all the time some Von Cali pop song. What's this for? I said. And this Beck replied, interrupting his like song an instant, that it was like to keep my Gulliver still and make me look at the screen. But I said, I want to look at the screen. I've been brought here to biddy films, and biddy films I shall. And then the other white-coated Beck had a bit of a smack at that, and he said, you never know. Oh, you never know. Trust us, friend. It's better this way. And then I found that they were strapping my rukas to the chair arms, and my knockers were like stuck to a footrest. And it seemed a bit zoomy to me, but I let them get on with what they were wanting to get on with. If I was to be a free young Malchik again in a fortnight's time, I would put up with much in the meantime, oh my brothers. Well, one vesh I did not like, though, was when they put like clips on the skin of my forehead so that my top glasses were like pulled up, and I could not shut my glasses, no matter how hard I tried. I tried to smack and said, this must be a real horror show film if you're so keen on me videoing it. And one of the white coat vets said, smacking, horror show is right, friend. A real show of horrors. And then I had like a cap stuck on my Gulliver, and I could viddy wires all running away from it. And then stuck a like suction pad on my belly and one on the old ticker, and I could just about viddy wires running away from those. And then there was like a shoom of a door opening, and you could tell that some important Chelovek was coming in by the way the white-coated undervecks went all stiff. Everything ready, said Dr. Brodsky, in a very breathy kind of golos. Then I could swoosh voices. Right, from like a distance, then nearer too, and then there was a quiet, like humming room, and then as though the things had been switched on, and then the lights went out, and there was your humble narrator and friend, sitting alone in the dark, all on his frightened odinoki, not able to move, nor shut his glasses, nor anything. And then, oh my brothers, the film show started off with some very grunky atmosphere music coming from the speakers, very fierce and full of discord. Then on the screen, the picture came on, but there was no title and no credits. What came on was like a street, as it might have been any street in any town, and it was a real dark notchy, and the lamps were lit. It was very good, like professional piece of cine, and there were none of these flickers and blobs that you get, say, when you viddy one of those dirty films in somebody's house in a back street. All the time, the music bumped out, very sinister, and then you could viddy an old man coming down the street, very starry, and then there leaped out of the starry vet two Malchiks, dressed in the height of fashion, as it was at the time, and then they started to filly with him. They made a real pudding out of this starry vet, and the cruelly flowed, beautiful red. It's funny how the colours of, like, the real world only seem really real when you viddy them on a screen. Now, all the time I was watching this, I was beginning to get very aware of not, like, feeling all that well. And this I put down to the undernourishment and my stomach not quite ready for all the rich potassium and the vitamins I was getting here. But I tried to forget this, concentrating on the next film, which came on at once, my brothers, without any break at all. This time the film like jumped right away on a young debaucher who was being given the old in-out, first by one Malchik, and then another, then another, then another. She creaking away, very groomy through the speakers, and like very pathetic and tragic music going on all the time. And when it came to the 6th or 7th Malchik leering and snecking, and then going into it, and the debaucher creaking on the soundtrack like Bazoomi, then I began to feel sick. I had all pains all over, and I felt like I could sick up at any time, and not sick up. And I began to feel like in distress, oh my brothers, being fixed rigid in this chair. And when this bit of film was over, I could slooshy the gollus of this Dr. Brodsky over by the switchboard saying, reaction about 12.5, promising, promising. The next Lomchik of a film was of an old woman who kept a shop, being kicked about amid very groomy laughter by a lot of Malchiks. And these Malchiks broke up the shop and then set it on fire. Well, you could video this poor starry Petitza trying to crawl out of the flames, screaming and creaking. But having had her leg broke by these Malchiks kicking her, she could not move. So then all the flames were roaring around her, and you could slooshy the most grunky and agonizing screams that ever came from a human gollus. So this time I knew I had to sick up. So I creaked, I want to be sick! Please, let me be sick! Please bring me something to be sick in! But this Dr. Brodsky called back, imagination only. You've nothing to worry about. Next film coming up. Well, that was perhaps meant to be a joke. Then I noticed in all my pain and sickness what music it was that like cracked and boomed on the soundtrack. And it was Ludwig van, the last movement of the 5th Symphony. And I creached out like Bazoomi at that. Stop! I creached. Stop, you grassy, disgusting sods! It's a sin! That's what it is! A filthy, unkillable sin, you bratchnies! Dr. Brodsky said, what's all this about sin, That, I said, using lovely Ludwig van like that. He did no harm to anyone. Beethoven just wrote music. Music? Said Brodsky. Music? So, you're keen on music? Well, can't be helped. Here's the punishment element, perhaps. The governor ought to be pleased. I creaked, please stop it, I can't stand it anymore. And then this Brodsky said, stop it? Stop it, did you say? Why, we've hardly started. And then he and the others snapped quite loud. These things I had in my eyes, these lid locks, they're called. Stanley, of course, talked me into using these by saying that, of course, you know, they're used every day in eye operations in the hospital. I said, oh, really? But, I don't know, Stanley, it looks pretty horrible to me. Oh, no, you'll meet the doctor. He's a wonderful doctor from Moorfields Eye Hospital, one of the greatest eye hospitals in the world. Well, I met the man. He was very pleasant. He showed me a patient with these. I went, oh, God, isn't that going to hurt? Well, no, it's not going to hurt. Your eyes are going to be anesthetized. I went, oh. So, of course, he put the drops in, the anesthetic, which sang like Bazoomi, and then he'd, after 5 or 10 minutes, would stick a handkerchief in just to see whether I'd get a reaction. And if he didn't get a reaction, he knew we were ready to go. So there we are. I was all in a, tied up. I couldn't move my hands. I couldn't do anything. So he put these lid locks in. And of course, he didn't tell me that normally the patient is lying flat on his back on an operating table. Anyway, I'm sitting up watching the screen. And just before we were about to shoot the sequence, Stanley walked down and said, oh, doctor, well, why don't you just say, how are you doing, little Alex? One thing, of course, I forgot to tell you, that the doctor, once these lid locks were in my eyes, had to put artificial tears in the eyes, otherwise the corneas would dry up and I would be blinded for life. There we are. I've got the doctor, I'm sitting in the chair, I've got the lid locks in, and I'm saying, I'm counting. 1, 2, 10 seconds. Then the drops have to go in, otherwise I'm blinded, right? I'm just counting, tapping my foot, and the doctor's then saying, oh, it's got the artificial teardrops. He's going, what was your name again? I said, Alex! What does he want me to say? Hello, little what? I said, just say anything, it doesn't matter, they'll dub you in later. He said, no, I'd like to get the blind. So I said, Doc, could you put the tears in, please? Put the tears in the eyes. Oh, sorry. Fine, 1, 2. What's your name? Alex! Jesus. Okay. Action! Hello, little Alex. How are you today? Oh, thank God for that. Get the tears in, get the tears in. We did the scene. And of course, I reminded Stanley of this. He totally denied that he gave the doctor a line, but of course it's in the film. A fortnight later, Dr. Brodsky demonstrates Alex's cure to a room full of VIPs, such as yourselves. All the lights went out, and then there came on like 2 spotlights shining from the projection squares. And one of them was full on your humble and suffering narrator. And into the other spotlight there walked like a bolshy big Chelovek I've never vided before. He was about 30 or 40 or 50 or some old age like that, starry. He itted up to me, and in the spotlight it itted with him, and soon the 2 spotlights would make like one big pool. He said to me very sneery, hello, heap of dirt. Poo. You don't wash much, do you? Judging from that horrible smell. I think he was playing it a bit camp. Then, as if he was like dancing, he stamped on one of my noggers. Left, right. Then he gave me a finger flick, like that, on the nose that hurt like bazoomi, and brought the old tears to my glasses. And then he twisted on my left uku, like it was a radio dial. I could swooshy titters, and a couple of the real horror show ho-ho-hos coming from the audience. And I said, what did you do that to me for? I've never done wrong to you, brother. Oh, the spec said, I do this. He finger flicked my nose. Again, and that. And he twisted my smarting ear. And the other, and he stamped nasty on my right nogger, because I don't care for your horrible type. And if you want to do anything about it, start. Please do. Now, I knew that I'd have to be real scotty and get my cutthroat Britmer out before this horrible killing sickness whooshed up and turned like joy of battle into feeling I was going to snuff it. But oh my brothers, as my Ruka reached for the Britmer in my inside Carmen, I got this like picture in my mind's glassy of this insulting Chelovek howling for mercy with the red Kruvy all streaming out of his rot. And hot after this picture, the sickness and dryness and pains were rushing to overtake. And I viddied that I'd have to change the way I felt about this rotten Vec, very, very scorry indeed. So I felt in my Carmens for my cigarettes, for pretty Polly, and on my brothers, they were not there either. And I said, like all howling and blubbering, well, I'd like to give you a cigarette, brother, but I don't seem to have any. This Vec went, boo-hoo-hoo, cry baby. Then he flicked with his bolshy, horny nail at my nose again, and I could swooshy very loud smacks of like mirth coming from a dark audience. And I said, real desperate, trying to be nice to this insulting and hurtful Vec to stop the pains and sickness coming up. Please, let me do something for you, please. I could only find my cutthroat Britmer, so I took this out and I handed it to him, and I said, please take this. A little present, please have it, I said. Keep your stinking browns to yourself. You can't get around me that way. And he banged at my Ruka, and my Britmer fell on the floor. So I said, please, I must do something. Shall I clean your boots? Look, I'll get down and lick them. And my brothers, believe it or not, kiss my shaddies. I got down on my knees, and I pushed my red Yazik out a mile and a half to lick his grasny bonny boots. But all this Vec did was to kick me not too hard on the rot. And Brodsky said, all right, that will do. Very well. Then this horrible Vec sort of bowed and danced off like an actor while the lights came on me, blinking and with my rots square and howling. Dr. Brodsky said to the audience, "Our subject is, you see, impelled towards the good by paradoxically being impelled towards evil. The intention to act violently is accompanied by strong feelings of physical distress. To counter these, the subject has to switch to a diametrically opposed attitude. Any questions?" "Choice!" rumbled a rich, deep chorus. I believe it belonged to the prison child. "He has no real choice, has he? Self-interest, fear of physical pain drove him to that grotesque act of self-abasement. Its insincerity was clearly to be seen. He ceases to be a wrongdoer. He ceases also to be a creature capable of moral choice." Well, these are subtleties, smiled Dr. Brodsky. "We are not concerned with higher ethics. We are concerned only with cutting down crime." "And," chirped in this bolshy, well-dressed minister, "relieving the ghastly congestion in our prisons." "Hear, hear," said somebody. Well, there was a lot of govreeting and arguing then, and I just stood there, brothers, like completely ignored by all those ignorant bratches. So I preached out, "Me! Me! What about me? Where do I come into all this? Am I just like some animal or dog?" And that started them off govreeting real loud and throwing slowbows at me. So I preached louder still, screeching, "Am I just to be like a Clockwork Orange?" And that shut all of these Vecs up for a minute or two. And loud arguing started again. And then I could sluice you the soul of love being thrown about. The prison Charlie himself preaching as loud as any of the perfect love casteth out fear and all that cow. "The point is," the minister said, "that it works." "Oh," prison Charlie said, like sighing, "it works all right. God help the lot of us." Alex is set free, but his cure has rendered himself helpless and unable to defend himself. After several misadventures, he falls into the hands of the writer Beck, whose wife he had raped. The writer, of course, played by Patrick McGee, is a brilliant, brilliant actor, and I think it's a truly magnificent performance. He's a great Irishman, of course. He was. That's it now. But he came up to me and said, "What's it like working with Stanley Kubrick?" I said, "Well, it's very nice. You had a good time." He said, "Is there any Guinness?" I said, "I don't think he likes alcohol on the set." "Oh, I can't work without a Guinness." So, "Well, I'll ask him." So I said, "Stanley, Pat would like to know if there's a Guinness." "A what?" I said, "A Guinness." He said, "Oh, we can't serve out." He said, "Well, he's Irish, I better give him a Guinness." I said, all right. So he got him in a case of Guinness. And Patrick McGee was always very thankful to me for that. I think he finished it in 2 days. "It's all gone?" I said, "Well, yes, he's Irish. They love their Guinness." Anyway, Patrick McGee was always saying to me, "Malcolm, do you think I'm going over the top?" And he uttered those immortal lines of sitting at the table. "Food, all right. Try the wine." He was a scary man, all right. I jumped, oh my brothers. This is after an attempt of Alex to commit suicide. I jumped, oh my brothers, and I fell on the sidewalk hard. But I did not snuff it. No. But I cracked my back and my wrists and my noggers and felt a very bolshy pain before I passed out, brothers, with astonished and surprised litzos of Chelebeks in the street looking at me from above. And just before I passed out, I made it clear that not one Chelebek in the whole horrid world was for me. Where I was when I came back to Jesny after a long black gap, which might have been 1,000,000 years, was a hospital, all white and with this von of hospitals you get, all like sour and smug and clean. I came very slow back to knowing who I was, and I was all bound up in white and I could not feel anything. It was all bandages and wire cages, and in my right ruka, near the pleture, was red cruvi dripping into my arm from a jar upside down. But I could not feel anything, oh my brothers. And I went back to the land, back to all blackness lit up by like odd dreams, which I didn't know whether they were dreams or not, oh my brothers. Like, for instance, I had this idea that my whole plot or body being like emptied as it might be dirty water and then filled up with clean. And then there was really lovely and horror show dreams of being in some Vex auto that had been crasted by me and driving up and down the world, all on my Orinoki, running ludies down, and hearing them preach like they were dying, and in me no pain and no sickness. And then I woke up again, and it was my P and M, come to pity their ill son, my M, boo-hoo-hooing, real horror show. I said, well, what gives? What makes you think you're like welcome? My pa said, in like a shady way, you were in the papers, son. It said that they'd done a great wrong to you. It said how the government drove you to try and do yourself in. And it was our fault too, in a way, son. Your home's your home when all's said and done. My mum kept going, boo-hoo-hoo, and looking up as ugly as Kiss My Shabbies. So now, I said, you're willing for me to move back in again and things be like they were before? Yes, son, said my papa. Please, son. I'll consider it, I said. I'll think about it, real careful. Went my mum. Oh, shut it, I said. Or I'll give you something proper to yarn and preach about. Kick your zoobies in, I will. And oh, my brothers, saying that made me feel a malenky bit better. As if all like fresh, red cruvi was flowing all through my plot. There was something I had to think about. It was like, as though to get better, I had to get worse. That's no way to speak to your mother, son, said my papa. After all, she brought you into this world. Yes, I said, and a right grasny vonny world it is too. I shut my glasses tight, like in pain, and said, all right, go away now. I'll think about coming back. But things will have to be very different. Yes, son, said my P. Anything you say. Well, you'll have to make up your mind, I said. Who's to be boss? My mum. Very good, son, said my papa. Things will be as you like, only get well. When they'd gone, I laid and thought a bit about different veshes, like all different pictures passing through my Gulliver. And when the nurse, Petitza, came back in and, like, straightened the sheets on my bed, I said to her, how long is it that I've been in here? A week or so, she replied. And what have they been doing to me? Well, she said, you were all broken up and bruised, and had sustained severe concussion and had lost a lot of blood. They'd have to put it all right now, haven't they? But, I said, has anyone been doing anything with my Gulliver? What I mean is, have they been playing around with, like, the inside of my brain? Whatever they've done, she said, it'll all be for the best. Well, that scene with the doctor, this very lovely lady, I've forgotten her name now, who was the actress, but anyway, I remember this is the famous Stanley Kubrick 50 takes. God, it was torture. I remember saying to him, couldn't you just, when we get to 50, you could mark it 1A? And he said, no, we can't do that. So anyway, I remember then saying to him, the scene was she was wheeling in these pictures that she would put in on the screen, and I would have to give a sort of answer to what was on the screen. And they were rather stilted, the answers were not very good, I didn't think. I mean, there'd be a sort of picture of a bird's nest, and they gave me an answer, and it was very predictable. So after 55 takes or something, I said, Stanley, could I just say whatever comes in to my head. He said, yeah, let's try that, let's try something. So, in she comes, the bird's egg. And I say, I just say anything that comes in my head. Yes, that's right. Oh, cabbages, knickers. Of course, I couldn't think of anything else to say, really. And I thought, oh, Jesus, that's not very good. Then she showed me a picture of a burglar coming in with a mask on to a woman in bed like this. And I said, oh, don't worry about me, love. I've just come to read the meter. And, of course, anyway, this is the tape they used in the film. All right, thank you for being so patient. Just one little bit left. At 2:30 of the afternoon, there was like all photographers and men from gazettas with notebooks and pencils and all that cow. And brothers, they near trumpeted a Bolshoi fanfare for this great and important vet who was coming to Billy, your humble narrator. One amusing bit of story was that Stanley cast, he thought, oh, I'll just get any actor to play the part of the head of the hospital, a man called Sir something something, a very, brilliant surgeon. And so he just got some member of the crowd, put him in a suit and a white coat, and said, just, you play it. So the guy said, oh, okay, thank you very much, Stanley. And anyway, he's bringing the minister in the interior in, and we're doing the first rehearsal, and the guy that he chose to play it was, I think, a stuntman. And so he's supposed to be this eminent surgeon, Sir something something. And so he walks in, and the first thing I hear is, all right, minister, this way, mate. This is your little Alex here, right. I thought, Stanley, could I have a word with you, man? Isn't this man supposed to be an eminent surgeon? Yeah, that's right. Well, would he have a Cockney accent? Well, he's a Cockney? Well, yes, did you hear this? Yes, well, all right, let's do another verse. Action. All right, man, this way, minister, this is little Alex, all right, and all Alex, all right. Oh, yeah. Of course, the old handkerchief comes out, sticks it down in his mouth, he's laughing so hard. Stop for the day, fire this one, bring another one in. Yes, he fired a few. And in he came, and of course, it was none other than the Minister of the Interior, or inferior, as I like to call him, dressed in the height of fashion with this very upper-class golf. Flash, bang, went the cameras. And when he put out his ruker for me to shake it, I said, well, well, what giveth, old droogie? Nobody seemed to quite told me that, but somebody said in like harsh Gaulish, be more respectful, boy, in addressing the minister. Yarbles, I said, like snarling like a droogie. Bolshie great yar blockos to thee and thine. All right, said the Interior Minister. You're very scurry. He speaks to me as a friend, don't you, son? I'm everybody's friend, I said, except to my enemies. Well, said the sitting down on my bed, I and the government of which I am a member want you to regard us as friends. Yes, friends. We have put you right, yes? You're getting the best of treatment. We never wish to harm, but there are some who did and do, and I think you know who those are. All who do me wrong, I said, are my enemies. Yes, he said. There are certain men who want to use you, yes, use you for political ends. They would have been glad for you to be dead, for they thought they could blame it all on the government. I think you know who these men are. There is a man, said the impman, called F. Alexander, a writer of subversive literature, who has been howling for your blood. He's been mad with desire to stick a knife in you. But you're safe from him now. We put him away for his own protection, and also, he said, for yours. Kind, I said. Most kind about. When you leave here, said the men, you will have no worries. We shall see to everything, a good job on a good salary, because you are helping us. Am I? I said. We always help our friends, don't we? And then he took my ruker, and some vet creached, smile! And I smiled like Bazoomi without thinking, and then flash, flash! Crack, flash, bang. They were like pictures being taken of me and the imp men all drew me together. Good boy, said the great Jelly. Good, good boy. And now, see, a present. What was brought in now, brothers, was a big shiny stereo. What shall it be? Mozart? Beethoven? Schoenberg? Carl? Or? The ninth, I said. The glorious ninth. The men said, good, good boy. Passing me on the plectrum, and then he hit it off. Only one vet was left, saying, sign here, please. I opened my glasses up to sign, not knowing what I was signing, and not all my brothers caring either. Then I was left alone with the glorious ninth of Ludwig van. Oh, it was gorgeousness and yum, yum, yum. When it came to the scherzo, I could video myself very clear, running and running on like very light and mysterious noggers, carving the whole elixir of the creaking world with my cutthroat gripper. And there was still the slow movement and the lovely last singing movement to come.